Welcome everybody to another episode of Roddle Me This. I am your host Taylor Roddle, also known as The Ruddler, and in today's episode I am joined by Aimée Thorne. Aimée is an up-and-coming stand-up comedian located up in Auckland, and she's quickly making a name for herself with her dark sort of sense of humour. So I thought it might be fun to bring her onto the show and we can have a conversation about true crime. It's a topic that I have often found fascinating yet also baffling. Baffling in terms of its popularity. I've listened to a few true crime podcasts in the past, and I can't do a lot of them at once. One episode is about enough for me, and after that I start getting quite depressed. So in this interview, we get into it a little bit as to why Aimée likes true crime so much, or perhaps more like why she finds it so fascinating. And then we talk about a book she's been reading called The Gift of Fear, as well as some famous cases from around New Zealand. As you can imagine, a lot of the subject matter of this episode will be quite heavy, and some viewers out there might find it very disturbing to listen to, so be aware of that when you go into this episode, and if you feel like you need to skip it, I won't hold that against you. So with that, let's get the interview started. Welcome to the show, Aimée Thorne. Hello Aimée, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Taylor, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about true crime, a subject I understand you are quite passionate about.
Yes, I'm. It's an odd one to be passionate about, isn't it?
It is a tiny bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's when I say passionate, I'm just endlessly fascinated by it. Like I for the record, I don't like murder.
That's an important fact to get out there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
We are not advocating for murder here at Rattle Me This.
No, I abhor it. That's why I find it fascinating. I think it's because I'm not a fan of it. So it's an endless process of trying to understand how somebody could do something so horrible.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Myself, so with the we spoke a little bit about this off camera, but my angle for it is much like you're trying to understand murder, I'm trying to understand why people are so fascinated with true crime.
Right.
Generalizing a lot here, but it tends to be, in my experience, women are more into it than men. But then from what I've seen, women get victimized a lot more in true crime than I've seen in men. So it's interesting to me. It almost seems like that would be even scarier if it was it could be me next kind of feeling. So I guess we'll attempt to understand that as we go on. But how long have you kind of been into true crime?
I think for a long time it was like this kind of just in the background fascination. Like I always found myself watching the First 48 or those true crime shows. I remember studying and I was supposed to be writing essays and things, and I just watched like serial killer documentaries when it was like my form of procrastination.
I think true crime has been around for a long time, but it hasn't always been called true crime, has it? Because I remember watching.
No, I
remember watching shows like Sensing Murder, which has a very true crime kind of vibe to it, and those ones on like 60 Minutes where they would recreate not Dan Bain. Dan Bain is a very funny comedian from Christchurch. David Bain is the comedian I'm thinking of. And they would do those recreations with the actors and stuff. So I think it's always kind of been in the like cultural zeitgeist, but I feel like the term true crime, we'll get that in post. I feel like the term true crime has only been around for maybe 10 years or something like that. Would that be your experience too?
I think so. I think that there's become a kind of renaissance of, or it's always been fascinating.
A
renaissance of murder.
That's a great
It's had
word
a comeback moment.
Murder's coming back. First it was drugs in the 90s, now we're back to murder.
Yeah, murder's in again.
Murder is so vogue right now.
It's so on trend.
It's chic.
No, but I think you've got shows like My Favorite Murder, the podcast. I think that really brought people kind of out of the closet with their interests a bit.
Yeah.
And there's like on communities, and podcasting, I think, has really been revolutionary in that, because it's suddenly, you watch these things and you never really got to process the weirdness of why you're so fascinated by this thing. But now there's podcasts devoted to that following. You have people like call themselves murderinos that
really?
are into it. Yeah, that's the my favorite murder crowd.
Right. Oh, that's their little fandom kind of name.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
But actually, the Simpsons term had the term for that first.
Oh, you can Ned Flanders, right?
Enough. Yeah, murderino.
That's great. Yeah.
So I think it's always been something I've been fascinated by, and I was always just kind of like quietly fascinated by it, because I was disturbed by myself for being so fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And yet, like I just like, it's funny, I used to, when I lived with my mum, I used to get books out of the library, and it was quite funny because like I would put all these books on hold, and she'd put all these books on hold, and we'd collect them together.
Yeah.
And the books that I got were like Sensing Death, or A Stranger Among Us, Predatory, all these dark titles.
And you're just like a little 8-year-old kid or something.
No, this is probably, oh gosh, a few years ago.
Oh,
but
okay.
My mum was just like, The Beauty of Trees, or
the poetry of Walt Whitman.
Yeah, that's sort of all this wholesome stuff, and the librarians used to be like, what is going on with this girl?
So is your mum like a bit of a ray of sunshine sort of person?
Yeah, definitely. She's very spiritual, she's fascinated by it too, though, don't get me wrong, but
I guess that's one thing Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry. I think it's just it's interesting. I think it's almost like if you're I imagine like it to be like a kid that maybe gets beat up a lot and then becomes obsessed with learning how to fight or something.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to learn how not to become the prey.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
I think that's why women are, because it's almost like it alleviates anxiety if you are studying something like that, because there are so many instances as a woman where you encounter problematic and dangerous people.
Yeah, no kidding.
So
yeah. So it's a kind of research into how to not be taken unawares kind of thing.
Yeah, because I think women are conditioned to be polite,
not make a scene
in the wrong settings, and all those things, and told that we're being irrational for being alert, when actually the reality is we should be very alert.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it gives you an outlet for, this is why I'm always anxious or in public situations or whatever,
I've always been a little bit like that as well. Like it's weird, I'm quite a big guy, but I'm like a deer or something. I'm quite sort of flighty, if that makes sense. And if I'm at the ATM, I'm always looking in the reflection of the glass to make sure no one's creeping up behind me and stuff. So I relate, I don't know why, I don't really have any reason to be, but I relate to a lot, the whole have your keys in your hand like Wolverine. And I've always been really nervous in parking lots as well, even though nothing has ever happened to me. So I do relate to a lot of that fear of it's not really fear, is it? It's just kind of being aware of your surroundings, isn't it?
I mean, we're all animals at the end of the day. It is tapping into a primal reality. There's this book that I'm reading at the moment called The Gift of Fear, and it's by this safety analyst who he created this mosaic system, which is all about pre-indicators for violence or danger from strangers. But he gave an example of no other animal, if they were walking into a parking lot, for instance, and they had to get into a lift, right? A woman at night no animal would get into a lift with another animal that she was afraid of into a steel cage.
Yeah, no kidding.
But we do that all the time.
It's almost like the trap of kind of civility, isn't it? Like it's like if you see someone, like, again, being flighty, if I see that I'm walking on the same side of the road as someone, I'll usually just cross anyways, because I don't even want to, take away the sort of, then they might say something, or, whatever it is. But yeah, that it does seem crazy how big is an elevator? 6 feet by 6 feet, and they move slowly. The doors open. Yeah, that is crazy. Now that I
you
think
don't know who you're getting in with. You have no idea. But we do it out of politeness,
Yeah.
If we even sense somebody's, this book is really good because it's all about listening to your instincts.
Yeah.
And how much we overrule our gut and how much it actually has to teach us.
Yeah.
In all these situations.
There's something a little bit like, we kind of have to do this as comedians as well. Like, we have to if somebody's heckling or they're a bit drunk and disorderly, we sort of have to be aware that, like, something could kind of kick off after the show if you're too brutal with your comebacks, or like you almost have to kind of watch them and think, how close are they to throwing a glass? Are they going to be waiting for me outside, and that sort of thing? So it could be quite a book to read, quite a good book to read for comedians.
Absolutely, because I just feel like I always know, like, before I've gone on, I always know, this is not going to go well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I always know it. I always know I'm walking into a bomb or a good situation.
Right.
I'm always right. And I'm like, how do I know? Maybe I'm just sabotaging myself by doing this.
You could also just be really good at feeding off of the vibe of a room of people, though.
Potentially, but it's not great when you bomb.
No, it's not good to be right about these things, is it?
No, it's not.
I think it's a bit go ahead, sorry.
You just really have to read the room as a comedian, because it's a room full of animals, basically.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize how much psychology that goes into stand-up comedy as well. Well, I mean, you don't have to, but a little can go a long way when it comes to figuring out how to make people comfortable in a space, because in Christchurch, people are quite emotionally conservative, so you have to get them to kind of drop the walls to really get into it, and so there's a lot of different ways to do that.
I mean, what my comedy is very, like, cuts to the core of a lot of dark things, and it's not for everyone. Sometimes I get a lot of shocked reactions.
Right,
sometimes,
yeah.
It's very dark humor, so it's very much informed by my interest in all these things, to be honest.
Would you say have you ever kind of experimented with I guess easing them and, dipping the toe a little bit at the start, or do you just kind of go to it and you think, well, those who aren't here for it are just gonna this 8 minutes is going to be a long 8 minutes for them?
I don't really know how to do it any other way other than to cut to the jugular, and that either goes well for me or it goes horribly
tear the Band-Aid off, I suppose.
Yeah, because I can only think of dark things to write comedy about. I don't really do it on purpose. It's just the only things I find funny are really intense things.
One little trick you could do that I learned this from, because I'm a one-liner comic, and much like dark material, people are either here for. Well, I'm not a one-liner comic. I enjoy doing one-liners, and it's the same as people are either here for it or they fucking hate them. And like, so one thing I found.
But the good thing about one-liners is you can kind of save yourself. You can keep going. But one-liners, I like one-liners because
I love one-liners.
It's like you have to have a lot of material to do one-liner.
Good memory for it too, which I don't have. But the one thing I picked up from Gary Delaney, which he also sort of heard it from, I think it was Rachel Feinstein, who's a New York comic.
Oh, I like her.
He said he heard her kind of ask the crowd, like, I want to do an abortion joke, but I don't think you guys are going to be here for it. And then the crowd were like, no, we'll it'll be cool, kind of thing. And then so when she did the joke, the reception was less abrasive because they kind of asked for it.
That's
So one thing you'll notice,
interesting.
Gary Delaney, if you ever watch him, is he'll do a few jokes and then he'll do a particularly dirty one. And if it gets a laugh, he'll say, "Oh, good, you guys are here for the dirty stuff." And then it reinforces it in their head that, yeah, we're the kind of people that would laugh at dirty stuff. So maybe that's something you could incorporate into your act, is do a gentler dark joke at
Yeah,
first and say, you guys seem like you're a pretty cool crowd. You seem like you're here for the dark stuff. So let's see how this goes.
yeah. Yeah,
Food for
maybe
thought.
that's a good way to do it. Yeah.
It works for my
You guys here for
one-liners.
trauma?
what, what about death?
Yeah. Oh,
So
there's a
with
lot of death in my act. Honestly, there actually is.
I saw you had a
I have a
review
whole
that
suicide chunk.
oh, yep. We're hitting all the bingo slots there: death, trauma, suicide.
Yeah.
I saw a review of yours that said something like you were the queen of death.
Oh, yeah, the queen of dark comedy.
Oh, dark comedy, is that what it
Yes.
was?
Yeah.
Right. I
No,
might have misread
yeah.
that.
Well, that's what my friend Jamie came up with that, and yeah, she's just used it as the. I can't claim to be a queen of anything, but that's
Right.
what her title is.
Well, if you find a comedian that does pestilence jokes, a comedian that does war jokes, and a comedian that does famine jokes, you'll have a little quartet there of the four horsemen of comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might have that
We'll
niche
have
corner
something.
there.
Yeah. It is very much like you do realize how many people are into like true crime and that sort of thing
It's
when they do
everywhere.
laugh at your joke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have like a few jokes about different serial killers and things.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well, there was one
there's the
thing.
recognition there for sure.
There was one thing you said at the start, is you almost have to come out of the closet as a true crime fan, which I thought was quite interesting,
Mm,
in that you couldn't really be open with people until this kind of renaissance of true crime.
mm,
Yeah, so that is really interesting that people are more open about being into this very heavy, dark topic, I guess is the only word I can think of for it. We should actually talk about some of true crime. Like, do you have any favorite cases?
Oh, I mean, so many, but I think I just was reading about this case that happened in Utah in like 1990.
Uh-huh.
And it was these two guys, and what's really fascinating about it is they broke into this family's cabin where they were due to stay for Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And there's all this footage of them filming themselves with this camcorder opening up all the family's presents, like
Christmas
Christmas
presents.
presents. Like, yeah, they're
That's
just
monstrous.
like sitting there knowing that they're going to kill this family,
Oh, man.
opening their Christmas presents. It's the creepiest video I've ever seen. But luckily, in this instance, they didn't kill the whole family. Two of the daughters and the dad survived. So there's a good. I like survival ones.
How many family members were there?
There were a few. I
Oh, okay,
think they
that's
killed
right.
3 of them. So
Wow.
that wasn't good. But the dad was incredible because they like shot him in the head twice
Wow.
and burned him, and he
Jeez.
got it together, pulled himself together,
Yeah.
and managed to save his daughters.
Yeah, I imagine when it's your daughter's lives on the line, you'd pretty quickly you'd find some new gas in the tank or whatever they say.
Yeah.
Wow. What did he
But
fight
that's
them off
when
with?
well, he managed to. An uncle was coming by on a sled, and he managed to chase the girls down and get the attention of the uncle, and then the uncle was able to save the girls. But if he hadn't have come out and really fought for his life to save those girls, that they would have been toast. But
and this was recently. Oh no, you said it was in the 70s.
1990.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, it's strange to have a favorite murder. I really like murders. I like murders. I really am fascinated when there is an element of justice coming through.
Yeah, that's always nice.
I like that. I like the Golden State Killer is a recent one. Where have you heard of that?
That was the one,
case?
but it's terrible that I can't remember her name, but it was Patton Oswalt's ex-wife.
Yes, Michelle McNamara.
I can't speak tonight.
Hopefully I'm saying her name correctly.
Yes, you are. Now that you've said it, that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. And she wrote her book, which sort of, after she passed away, they published it and it kind of drummed up interest in the case. Is that right?
Yeah, basically she was investigating this case, and she was talking to Paul Holes, who has been on the case as a forensic scientist. So she was working with him to try and navigate how they could catch him, and they ended up doing it with familial DNA. So
someone was telling me about this the other day. Yes.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And it's so fascinating because it's opening up a whole new avenue for criminals to be held accountable that couldn't, because previous, like, DNA wasn't always available.
No, it wasn't, was it?
And there's so many crimes and cold cases that could actually be solved. But it's so strange because it's like, if you want to find out, what heritage you have, could ultimately lead to one of your relatives being
imagine that
caught for it.
We found out that you're 80% German, you're 20%, French, and your grandfather's been murdering people for 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot of ethical concerns about that, right? For privacy. Yeah. And I mean, I understand that, but I also just think, well, we should use all the tools we can to hold people to account for these crimes. As well.
Do we want to have a society that catches criminals at life is kind of privacy versus safety in a lot of cases, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a really fascinating thing too, because we are living in a world where all of these things are going to become, our privacy is not going to be retained, I don't think.
The well is running dry, isn't it?
Yeah. Imagine, and this Gavin de Becker talks about this in his book too, that, in 2050, you're probably going to have Uber drivers that you have access to all of their criminal history. So know who you're getting into a car with before you get into it, and you can assess who's safe to get into a car with based on an app,
Wow. Imagine weighing that up, like, this guy beat someone up outside a bar, but this guy had a minor kidnapping thing. Yeah, I'll go for the bar fighting guy.
Yeah, but it would also be problematic for, if you make a mistake in life, then
I should actually apologize. I'm not insinuating that every Uber driver has a criminal record. That's horrible.
Yeah.
I do apologize deeply for that. I was doing it I was making a joke.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're right though. Did you ever see the old John Mulaney joke where he talks about how different crime was back in the kind of 1800s?
Oh, I don't think I know that one.
He's like, basically, so long as you weren't still there when the police arrived, you had a 99% chance of getting away with it. And they'd be talking to the inspector and they'd be like, "Inspector, we found a pile of the killer's blood over there." And he would just be like, gross, mop it up immediately. And then that would be like the end of it.
Jesus.
Are there, apart from obviously the David Bain case, are there any other kind of New Zealand kind of, I guess, in the true crime world, are there any major cases that we have had in New Zealand?
Yeah, there's, what's it called? There was that shooting that happened, Aramoana, is that where it was?
Quite recently, or was this
David
a few years ago?
Gray in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
I think, or early 90s. There was that film about it. I haven't recently read about it, but he shot up a bunch of people basically in a small town.
Right. I think I have seen that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. The David Bain one is fascinating as well. Yeah. I still don't know.
Like who did it?
That's one where I have read so much about it, and I've listened to the podcast and watched the docuseries and things, and I'm pretty convinced he did it.
Yeah.
But then I'm also just not 100% either.
I suppose it's one of those cases where it wouldn't have been such a big deal if it was shut and dry, then we wouldn't still be talking about it to this day, right?
Yeah. I quite like the cases though that don't get the coverage. Like there's one that really fascinates me. This woman, Claire Hill, she was like in her 30s, and she was on her way to do a shift at McDonald's at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And someone, they think, this is from what they can deduce.
Yeah.
Someone broke into her car, they think, while she was driving to work.
Yeah.
Or she maybe let somebody in her car or something.
Yeah.
But she was found burned alive in her car.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, sorry if this is all very gruesome. I'm just going there.
That's why people come out to the true crime podcasts. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm so used to these grisly details that I don't even notice it anymore. But I've desensitized myself.
True, yeah.
But yeah, but the murder's never been solved, and this happened in Auckland on like K Road.
Was this fairly recently?
Was abducted. This was in the 90s, but
okay.
she's never been
They've never found out who did it. I understand.
Never found out. The Grace Mullane one was a tragic one as well.
Yeah, that was awful too. I've heard that K Road is a bit of a chaos kind of hotspot up in Auckland. Is that right?
Oh yeah, have you been to K Road before?
I've walked. I did David's Love Shack gig, which is on K Road, isn't it, or was?
Yeah.
And then I sort of walked from there to the Classic, which is a couple of blocks. So from what I saw, it seemed pretty all good. It was pretty busy. Seemed like there's a lot of people around. But I hear whenever someone kind of says K Road, there's a kind of a laugh and like, that K Road.
Yeah, it's pretty hectic, honestly. I mean, as an Aucklander, I'm just so acclimatized to K Road. I go there like pretty much most of the gigs are there. Go there all the time, but you just get these every time there's somebody yelling and screaming or having a fight. Or it's kind of
just another day on K Road.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually went to a Love Shack gig one night. I got off the bus and people were like banging their fists on the bus, and I was like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
Got off, went to the Love Shack gig, and apparently then police and everything were suddenly everywhere.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, there's like a gang fight happening.
Oh, I heard about this.
You can't go this way because it's dangerous. And somebody had been shot apparently.
Oh, wow.
And we were all just like, oh, well, I guess we'll still do the gig.
Yeah.
The
audience isn't going anywhere, I guess. You want to go out there or you want to hear us tell jokes?
And then we ended up having like wines and Q Theatre, and we felt like very bougie.
Yeah.
Compared.
Just wait till the gunfire ends and then you can go home.
Yeah.
Wow. What a city, Auckland. So we are sort
Where
of.
are you from?
I'm Christchurch. I'm from rural Christchurch as well. I grew up in Dunsandel, which is like a population of 300 kind of thing. So it's very different vibe to K Road.
The home though of the Heavenly Creatures murder.
Dunsandel?
Juliet home. Sorry?
It happened in Dunsandel.
Oh, it happened in Christchurch. I'm not sure where in Christchurch, but it's,
what happened there?
It's pretty. Well, that was the one with the two teenage girls, and they killed their mother.
Wow.
Peter Jackson did the film about it.
That's my favorite name. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really good film.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Excellent movie.
Was this pre or post Lord of the Rings?
Oh, pre Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, because people don't realize it about Peter Jackson is he basically exclusively did horror and like sort of dark stuff before Lord of the Rings.
I personally prefer his previous work.
You like Peter Jackson before he was cool? That's understandable.
Forgotten Silver.
That's the thing about New Zealand and Australian cinema is like, I think, and if you're in the cinema world, we apparently have a sort of vibe to our. I don't know. So like I know Tarantino is a big fan of Australian cinema, And then I have been surprised at how many movies are actually made in New Zealand. I have some friends that are kind of in, they'll do like a gig where they'll do like the lighting or something like that on a day shoot up in the Port Hills in Christchurch or something. And yeah, it's quite surprising our kind of film industry here.
We have quite a dark sensibility.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, you're right.
Well.
Exactly. Yeah.
A lot of scenes of women dying in baths or something.
Oh, really?
I feel like baths is like a trope of New Zealand cinema. Women in baths. Maybe it's just something I've noticed.
Like a self-inflicted injury bathtub.
Or yeah, there's just a lot of sad scenes of women in bathtubs in New Zealand films.
Maybe that's our that's like the Italians have the mobster movie. We have that's our calling card of New Zealand movies is the sad bathtub scene.
Yeah.
So we got a couple of minutes left in the call. Is there anything else you wanted to cover? I feel like we're gonna have to bring you back and do some more true crime. Like maybe we could talk about some individual cases or something, because it's been quite a fun conversation for me.
Yeah, it's very fun. I could talk about it for hours, to be honest.
Well, there you go. I think we could make this another recurring. We're just doing whatever we want with Rodham with this. I'm just doing interviews with people that are interesting, I hope. But yeah, anything else you want to sort of chat about in the kind of 4 minutes we got left?
I guess because I'm reading this book at the moment, The Gift of Fear, I would recommend it because it's very fascinating. I just learnt a new term, which is called forced teaming.
What does that mean?
Which is very interesting. So when it's a pre-indicator of danger, because if a stranger you don't know, for instance, comes up to you and starts using language like, we need to get your groceries home. We need to sort this out. They try to create a sense of as if you're a team before you even know the person. And it's very interesting. They build a rapport. He gives this example of this guy who this woman was bringing her groceries into her apartment, and she dropped a cat food tin and it rolled down the stairs, and he came up the stairs with it and handed it to her and was insistent on helping her with her groceries. And she was like, no, I'm fine. And he said things like, we need to feed that hungry cat of yours. And he managed to gain entry into her apartment with this kind of rapport building. And she was assaulted by him as a result. But there were all these little indicators where it's like seemingly being helpful, but she didn't actually ask for his help ever. But he tried to create like a team vibe, but forced teaming. It's very interesting.
And that sort of gets people to lower the walls a little bit.
Yeah, because that people do approach you, just strangers, especially as a woman. I was
going to say it doesn't happen to me a lot, but I'm sure it does to
you. And often it is that thing of you're carrying groceries of people, and you don't know if they're just being nice.
That's the tricky thing, isn't it?
But you can't take the gamble.
Yeah,
and that is how people get into these situations. It's politeness. You don't want to be rude to somebody who's seeming to offer you a helping hand.
Yeah, no, I'm all for that. So anybody out there, if you don't take anything away from this, do not afraid to be rude to people.
Yeah. Like the greatest thing that my favorite murder, the podcast, which I am a fan of, has done is the sensibility of fuck politeness.
There you go. Well, that's a great way to end it off. I appreciate you taking the time out of your week. I've had a great time chatting to you.
No worries. Same.
Yeah, we'll get you back and talk about some more murder, as it's very in right now.
Cool. Awesome. It's finally my time.
Yeah. You've been preparing your whole life for this.
I really have.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are back. That was a really fun and insightful interview for me to take part in. Aimée and I have actually never met in person, so I was quite surprised as to how naturally that conversation flowed. If you would like to see more of Aimée, definitely check out her social media links, which I will chuck in the show notes. And as Aimée said during the episode, she feels like she was only beginning to scratch the surface of true crime, so I think we will bring Aimée back for maybe a recurring segment on the podcast. Perhaps we could look at a different true crime case every episode, or just talk about true crime in general. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but I know true crime is very popular, so I would like to shamelessly hitch my wagon to that particular stallion. As always, thank you so much for listening. That is basically all from me. As usual, come out and join me at the pop quiz on the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays of every month at Meepalopolis from 7 o'clock, as well as the 1st and 3rd Thursdays of the month. Come and join us at the Austin Club for the Laugh Cellar. At the time of this recording, we had our first ever show at the Laugh Cellar, and it was a lot of fun. But we would love a few more audience members, so if you find yourself in the neighbourhood and you want to come out and have a knees up, definitely come down and enjoy some laughs with us. As always, last Thursday of the month, Sprig and Fern Merivale. I can't speak highly enough about them. Follow me on social media at Taylor Riddle Comedy on all platforms, and check out candocomedy.com or Can Do Comedy on Facebook to see any upcoming events we've got. Not a lot else in terms of life updates. Things are going pretty well. At the time of this recording, due to some encouragement from a couple of friends in a similar industry, have suggested me to switch over to a accounting software called Henry. If you're a New Zealand freelancer or sole trader, you're probably already aware of Henry, or you might already be using it yourself. But I'm absolutely kicking myself for not switching over to this sooner. I'm hoping that it's going to make all of my wide boy freelancing activities a lot smoother, especially when it comes to paying other comics and claiming expenses. I'm really looking forward to that process being a lot easier. So that's all from me this time. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch up with you next week. Ruddler out.